It's the dead of night. Imagine the smothering darkness before dawn. A chill races down your spine. Something is terribly wrong. This is the story of the Wonderland Murders, a real-life horror that exposed Hollywood's dark underbelly. Laurel Canyon, 1981, a haven for artists and dreamers. But behind the facade, darkness festered at 8763 Wonderland Avenue. On July 1st, a scene of unimaginable savagery was discovered. The Wonderland house became synonymous with brutal violence. The Wonderland murders were a symptom of Hollywood's larger disease. Drugs, specifically cocaine, were the lifeblood of this world. The victims were caught in a web of addiction and ambition. This was real life, a stark reminder of Hollywood's dark side. July 1st, 1981. A concerned neighbor investigated the unusual silence. She stumbled upon a scene so horrific it would haunt her forever. Bodies, broken and lifeless, strewn across the floor. Her scream shattered the tranquility of Wonderland Avenue. The LAPD descended upon Wonderland Avenue. Detective Jack Dorman surveyed the brutal scene. 4 victims bludgeoned beyond recognition. This wasn't just a robbery gone wrong, it was personal. The victims had their own stories and dreams. Joy Miller, a small-town girl seeking fame. Ron Launius, a struggling actor and drug dealer. Billy Deverell and Barbara Richardson, partners in crime. Joy Miller came to LA with stars in her eyes. She found work as a dancer but was drawn into Hollywood's dark side. Her relationship with Ron Launius was a dangerous liaison. Her diary revealed a haunting premonition of tragedy. Billy Deverell and Barbara Richardson ran a drug ring. Their parties were legendary, fueled by cocaine and alcohol. Ron Launius became entangled in their web. The Wonderland house was a powder keg waiting to explode. Whispers of John Holmes began to circulate, a former porn star, now a shadow of his former self. Holmes and Launius had a history, a connection. Holmes became a person of interest in the investigation. John Holmes, once a king of porn, now a fallen idol. Sitting across from Detective Dorman, his desperation was palpable. Holmes recoiled at the photograph of the crime scene. Dorman knew Holmes was hiding something monstrous. John Holmes's life had been a roller coaster ride of dizzying highs and soul-crushing lows. He had ascended to the heights of fame in the 1970s, his name synonymous with a generation's sexual awakening. He had everything: money, fame, and a seemingly endless supply of beautiful women. But the darker side of fame, the insatiable hunger for more, had slowly consumed him. Cocaine, the insidious white powder that fueled Hollywood's endless parties, had become his constant companion, his crutch, his tormentor. It promised escape, oblivion from the growing emptiness within him, the gnawing fear that his star was fading, but the price of that escape was steep, each hit chipping away at his soul, his health, his humanity. As his addiction spiraled out of control, so too did his life. He became embroiled in a dangerous underworld, his debts mounting, his associations becoming increasingly shady. The men he owed money to were not the type to forgive or forget, and Holmes, desperate to feed his habit, found himself caught in a web of his own making. Detective Dorman, piecing together the fragments of Holmes's life, saw a pattern of escalating risk-taking, a desperation that bordered on suicidal. Holmes had become a liability, a loose cannon, and Dorman knew that in the ruthless world he inhabited, loose cannons were often silenced, permanently. The night of the murders, July 1st, 1981, was a sweltering summer night in Los Angeles. The air hung heavy with humidity, a palpable tension crackling through the city like static electricity. At 8763 Wonderland Avenue, a party raged, fueled by cocaine, alcohol, and a reckless disregard for the consequences. John Holmes, high on his own supply, desperate to score his next fix, arrived at the house sometime after midnight. He was a familiar face, A fixture in this den of iniquity, his presence both welcomed and feared. He moved through the crowd like a phantom, his eyes darting, his demeanor edgy, his desperation clinging to him like a shroud. What happened next remains shrouded in a haze of drugs, violence, and conflicting accounts. What is known is that sometime in the early morning hours the party turned deadly. A robbery, a drug deal gone wrong, a jealous rage. The motives remain murky, lost in the fog of that nightmarish night. The sun rose on a scene of unimaginable carnage. 4 lives extinguished, their bodies bearing the marks of a brutal, frenzied attack. The Wonderland House, once a haven of hedonism, was now a tomb, a gruesome testament to the dark underbelly of Hollywood's dreams. John Holmes, the fallen star, became the prime suspect in the Wonderland murders. He had been at the house that night, of that there was no doubt. But was he the perpetrator, the mastermind behind the massacre, or simply a convenient scapegoat, a pawn in a game far more sinister than he could comprehend? Dorman, a man who had stared into the abyss of human depravity for too long, watched Holmes closely, his years of experience telling him that the former porn star was both lying and telling the truth. He saw the fear in Holmes's eyes, the genuine terror of a man who had witnessed something unspeakable, but he also saw the cunning, the carefully constructed facade of a man desperate to save himself. The investigation became a tangled web of conflicting statements, dead ends, and whispers of a conspiracy that reached far beyond the blood-soaked walls of the Wonderland house. The deeper Dorman delved, the more he realized that the truth was a slippery, elusive thing, obscured by layers of deceit, self-preservation, and a collective silence born of fear. Someone, somewhere, knew the truth about what happened that night. Someone had the power to silence witnesses, to manipulate evidence, to ensure that the real story of the Wonderland murders remained buried beneath a mountain of lies and half-truths. The question was, could Dorman unravel the truth before the darkness consumed him too? The Wonderland murders became a macabre spectacle, a media circus that exposed the dark underbelly of Hollywood's glamour. The victims, once flesh and blood individuals with dreams, aspirations, and flaws, were reduced to headlines, their lives sensationalized, their deaths exploited for public consumption. John Holmes, the fallen star, became the face of the tragedy, his name forever linked to the carnage at Wonderland Avenue. He was tried and acquitted of the murders, the prosecution's case riddled with holes and inconsistencies, but the shadow of suspicion followed him, a constant reminder of the night his life spiraled irrevocably out of control. He died a broken man, his body ravaged by years of drug abuse, his spirit crushed by the weight of his experiences. He took the truth of that night to his grave, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and a chilling reminder of the price of fame in a town built on illusion and fueled by desire. The Wonderland murders remain a haunting reminder of the dark side of the American dream, a cautionary tale of ambition, addiction, and the seductive allure of a world where fantasy and reality collide with brutal consequences. It is a story that continues to fascinate and repulse, a reminder that even in the City of Angels, some sins can never be washed away. The Los Angeles courtroom buzzed with anticipation. The Wonderland murders trial had become a media spectacle. The victims, now frozen in time as photographs, seemed to bear silent witness. John Holmes, once untouchable, now a gaunt figure, sat at the defendant's table. The prosecution, led by Stephen Kay, presented a case built on circumstantial evidence. Witnesses, former friends of Holmes, took the stand, their testimonies a tapestry of half-truths. The defense argued the case was built on speculation, fueled by media frenzy, and, at the center of it all stood John Holmes, his fate hanging in the balance. The testimony of one witness in particular sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Dawn Schiller, a former girlfriend of John Holmes, took the stand with a palpable air of trepidation. Her voice, barely above a whisper at first, grew stronger as she recounted her tumultuous relationship with Holmes, painting a picture of a man spiraling out of control, consumed by his addiction, and prone to fits of rage. Schiller testified that Holmes had confessed to his involvement in the Wonderland murders, his words a chilling mix of bravado and remorse. She described him as a broken man, haunted by what he had seen and done, his conscience burdened by the weight of his actions. Her testimony, delivered with a raw, emotional honesty that resonated with the jury, threatened to shatter the defense's carefully constructed facade of reasonable doubt. However, Hansen, a master strategist, skillfully chipped away at Schiller's credibility during cross-examination. He highlighted inconsistencies in her account, pointed to her history of drug use, and suggested that her testimony was motivated by a desire for revenge against Holmes for his past mistreatment of her. The jury, bombarded with conflicting narratives and uncertain of whom to believe, found themselves lost in a labyrinth of doubt. As days turned into nights, the jury deliberated, their deliberations shrouded in secrecy. The fate of John Holmes, once a symbol of Hollywood hedonism, now a pawn in a high-stakes game of justice, hung precariously in the balance. Section 3. Compromised Justice. A hush fell over the courtroom as the jury filed back in, their faces etched with the gravity of their decision. The foreman, his voice trembling slightly, read the verdict, "Not guilty." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom, a mixture of shock, disbelief, and a palpable sense of unease. John Holmes, the fallen star, had been acquitted. The prosecution, their case built on a foundation of circumstantial evidence, and the hope that the jury would see through Holmes's denials, were left reeling from the verdict. They had failed to convince the jury of his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and the master manipulator had once again managed to evade responsibility for his actions. Whispers of jury tampering and witness intimidation, fueled by rumors of Eddie Nash's involvement and his vast underworld connections, circulated through the courtroom and beyond. Nash, a shadowy figure with a reputation for ruthlessness, had been implicated in the Wonderland murders but never charged. Many believed that he had orchestrated the entire bloody affair, using Holmes as a pawn in his deadly game, and had the power and influence to ensure that justice would never be served. The Wonderland Murders trial had come to an end, but the case remained open, a festering wound on the city's psyche. The truth, it seemed, was a slippery and elusive thing, buried beneath layers of deceit, fear, and the corrupting influence of power. Section 4. A city shrouded in doubt. The Wonderland Murders became a defining moment in Los Angeles history, a grim reminder of the dark underbelly that lurked beneath the city's glitz and glamour. It was a story that refused to die, its tendrils reaching into the highest echelons of power, exposing the fragile nature of justice and the corrupting influence of fame and fortune. The case remained unsolved, a cold case file filled with unanswered questions, tantalizing clues, and the lingering suspicion that the true perpetrators had escaped justice. The victims, their lives tragically cut short, became footnotes in a larger narrative, their memories overshadowed by the notoriety of the crime and the enduring enigma of John Holmes. The Wonderland Murders served as a chilling reminder that even in the City of Angels, darkness could lurk in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes, the price of truth was far higher than anyone was willing to pay. The case, though officially closed, cast a long shadow, its legacy a stark reminder that some mysteries are destined to remain unsolved, their secrets buried deep within the heart of Hollywood's enduring darkness. Section 1. Ghosts of Wonderland. Decades have passed since the Wonderland house bore witness to unimaginable horror. The once notorious drug den now stands as a silent sentinel, a reminder of the fragility of life. Sunlight filters through dusty windows, illuminating dust motes, tiny vortices of memory and pain. Bloodstains now rusty brown, whisper of lives brutally extinguished and dreams shattered. Some say the house is haunted, restless spirits seeking answers and peace. Paranormal investigators claim to have recorded EVPs, disembodied voices filled with sadness and longing for justice. Whether genuine or imagined, the ghosts of Wonderland refuse to be silenced. The Wonderland Murders, once a sensation that gripped the city, have faded from public memory, relegated to the dusty archives of true crime lore. The passage of time has a way of dulling even the sharpest edges of tragedy, of transforming real-life horrors into cautionary tales, their impact diminished by the relentless march of progress and the fleeting nature of fame. Hollywood, that grand illusionist, has a remarkable ability to sanitize its own history, to airbrush the darkness from its narrative. The Wonderland Murders, with their unsavory cast of characters and their stark exposé of the underbelly beneath the city's glittering facade, have become an inconvenient truth, a stain on the mythology of Hollywood's golden age. The studios, those dream factories that once churned out John Holmes's films, now distance themselves from his legacy, his name a whisper in the annals of exploitation cinema. The parties continue, the drugs still flow, and the pursuit of fame and fortune remains as relentless as ever. But beneath the surface, a current of unease remains, a tacit acknowledgement that the darkness has not been vanquished, merely driven underground. In the hushed conversations at industry gatherings, in the whispers that follow the mention of the Wonderland murders, there is a sense of collective amnesia, a deliberate forgetting. Few are willing to speak openly about that time, about the events that transpired, about the secrets that remain buried beneath the weight of years, and the fear of retribution. The sun sets on another perfect Los Angeles day, casting long shadows across the Hollywood hills. The air buzzes with a frenetic energy, a palpable sense of ambition and desperation that permeates the city's every pore. The show, as they say, must go on. New faces arrive in Hollywood every day, their heads filled with dreams of stardom, their hearts vulnerable to the city's seductive embrace. They are drawn to the bright lights, the allure of fame, the promise of a life less ordinary. They are the inheritors of a legacy, both glorious and tragic, their destinies intertwined with the city's storied past. The parties continue, fueled by a potent cocktail of ambition, excess, and the ever-present specter of darkness, but the ghosts of Wonderland linger, their presence felt in the shadows, in the hushed whispers, in the uneasy glances exchanged across crowded rooms. The Wonderland murders serve as a chilling reminder that the pursuit of fame and fortune can come at a terrible cost, that the line between dreams and nightmares can be razor-thin. And as long as the dream factory keeps churning, as long as the allure of Hollywood remains, the ghosts of the past will continue to haunt the present, their stories a cautionary tale for those who dare to chase their ambitions beneath the California sun. The Wonderland murders. A tale as old as time, or at least as old as Hollywood's reign in the public imagination. We've walked through the blood-soaked rooms, heard the whispers of the damned, seen the rise and fall of stars, their light extinguished by the insatiable darkness. But the true ending remains elusive, shrouded in speculation and regret. Did John Holmes succumb to the darkness, or was he a pawn in a larger game? Was Eddie Nash the puppet master behind the carnage? These questions, like ghosts, refuse to be exorcised. The official investigations may have concluded, but the whispers persist. We may never know the full truth of what transpired at 8763 Wonderland Avenue. The ghosts of Wonderland continue to haunt the hills of Hollywood. The Wonderland murders, beyond the shock value, stand as a brutal indictment of the dark side of the American dream, the underbelly of the City of Angels where ambition can curdle into desperation, and the pursuit of pleasure can lead to ruin. It's a story that exposes the seductive power of excess, and the corrosive nature of a system that rewards ruthlessness over talent. For every bright-eyed dreamer, there are countless others chewed up by the Hollywood machine, their hopes dashed, their spirits broken. The Wonderland murders remind us that even in the City of Angels, darkness lurks beneath the surface. And yet the show does go on. The cameras keep rolling, the stars keep shining, and the dreams keep arriving, fresh and hopeful, on the doorstep of Hollywood's grand illusion. The Wonderland murders, like countless other scandals and tragedies that have stained the city's history, have been absorbed into the mythology, their edges softened by time, their impact dulled by the relentless churn of the entertainment machine. But the darkness remains, a constant undercurrent beneath the surface of the glamour. It's in the whispers of those who remember, in the knowing glances exchanged in dimly lit bars, in the stories that are told and retold, each time gaining a new layer of myth and speculation. It's a darkness that is both alluring and terrifying, a reminder that the line between fantasy and reality is often blurred, and that in Hollywood everyone plays a part, whether they realize it or not. So, the next time you find yourself captivated by the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, the next time you lose yourself in the fantasy world projected on the silver screen, remember the story of the Wonderland murders. Remember the victims, their lives tragically cut short, their dreams forever entangled with the city's dark heart. Remember that behind the facade of beauty and success, there are always shadows, always secrets, always the potential for darkness to erupt, shattering the illusion and reminding us that even in the city of dreams, nightmares can and do come true.